Now that we've got our page information saving to Airtable, we want to move on to sending this information to Zapier. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this button for Save to Airtable, and let's call this one Send to Zapier. I'm going to change this style. Let's see here. I had a blue. I'm going to put an orange button on this one. So this will be our button that we'll send to Zapier, and let's create the flow that is triggered when you click this. So I'll say new flow, send to Zapier. And first thing I want to do, just like with the Airtable button, I want to set a value here on the button so that while we're connecting to Zapier and waiting for a response, I can just display an interim message that says it's sending. So I'm going to select my Send to Zapier button, and I want to set this value to say sending ... All right, now for the Zapier connection, first thing I want to do is go generate a webhook in Zapier. So I've got a new Zapier, and what I want to do is search for webhooks. So we can see webhooks by Zapier. This is going to be my trigger. And under trigger event, I will just say catch hook, because this is on the receiving end of the webhook. And when I hit continue, I'll get a custom webhook URL, and you just want to copy this. So now that I've copied this, I'm going to go back into Builder, and I'm going to create a new action. I'll search API, and there is API get and set in variable. The URL is going to be my webhook URL, so I'll paste that in. I'm going to add a header for content type, which will be application/JSON. The method will be a post. And now in the body, this is where I can add all of my objects that I want to send to Zapier. So the first thing I want to send is the title. So the key will be title. The value is going to be from a variable. So the variable is on our current page, and it is page title. So that's my first key value pair. I can click this add key value pair link to add more. So let's also do URL from a variable, page URL, description from a variable, OG description, image from a variable, OG image, and lastly, notes, which comes from an element value, and the element is the notes field on our page. So that's going to put all of those fields and variables into a package and send it to the webhook that I specified. And what I want to do lastly is I'm just going to add a success step, just like we did with Airtable. But I want it to trigger after, let's say, 1 second, just so we can have a interim step for sending. So I'm going to search timer, and I'll add this action that says start flow timer. This starts a timer that will execute a flow on the specified time interval. That's exactly what I want. So first I need to create my success flow. So I'm going to say new flow, Zapier success, and all this will do is change the value of that button. We said sending in the previous step, so once it's done, we just want to say sent. And now if I go back to my send to Zapier step and start flow timer, I can tell it to use Zapier success. I want to trigger it after 1 second. So that's all it will do. We'll see sending, and then we'll see sent after a second. Okay, now let's test this out. So I want to go back to Zapier. I have my webhooks there set up as a trigger. I'm going to say continue, and now I'm going to say test trigger. Zapier is going to give you a built-in or default test first, so it's going to say, yay, we found something. That's really just a test that they triggered. You'll see there's no information in here. It's got an empty query string. We want to add our own test. So let's go back to Builder and let's refresh our homepage here. Open our extension. We'll see the new Send to Zapier button. I'm going to add a note, and it says I want to save this to Zapier. And let's hit our Send to Zapier. We see sending, and then we see sent. Let's go back into Zapier, and what we want to do is retest this trigger. So if we go back to this test step, if we click on request A, this is the one that was pulled in, you see 56 seconds ago. If I hit load more, it's going to look for the next one. And we see here, request B is the one that I sent. And there's our info. We've got our title, our URL, our description, our image, and then my note that said I want to save this to Zapier. So now all of this information has been sent directly to our Zap every time we hit that Send to Zapier button. Now I could go on and build out a Zap automation that does whatever I want it to do, and I can pull these fields into all of my following steps. So really powerful and very simple with one webhook. If you set up any kind of automations in Zapier, this is a great way to connect it to your Chrome extension. Let's do the same thing for Integromat, since we're on a roll here. So I'm going to just duplicate these flows that I created for Zapier. The premise is the same. We're using webhooks for both of them. We want a sending and a sent state to show on the button, so we can pretty much duplicate everything. So I'm going to duplicate this flow for Send to Zapier, and I'm going to rename it Send to Integromat. I'm going to duplicate my Zapier success flow, and I'm going to rename this Integromat success. And I'm going to duplicate my Send to Zapier button, and this is now going to become, you guessed it, Send to Integromat. And I've got a different style that I want to put on this. There we go. And now on our event on this Send to Integromat button, we want to trigger our Send to Integromat flow. I'm going to go to that flow and now configure it. So the element that we want to change now is our button that says Send to Integromat. That will update it to say sending. For the API endpoint, we need to get a new endpoint from Integromat instead of using the one from Zapier. Other than that, it's all going to stay the same. So let's go to Integromat. I've got a new scenario here. I'm just going to click the plus button, type in webhooks, and I'll select webhooks, and I want a custom webhook. Now I'm going to click add, and I'm going to call this one my Clipper webhook. And here it is. It's now been generated. I can click the copy address to clipboard, and now I've got my webhook copied. Let's go back into Builder and paste that URL in here. So now there's my webhook. I'm still sending JSON. I'm still sending all the same fields that I sent to Zapier, so I'll leave all that the same. I still want to have that 1 second timer, but instead of triggering Zapier success, I want to trigger Integromat success after 1 second. If we go to that Integromat success action, instead of updating our send to Zapier button, we just want to update that send to Integromat button. And that should be it. We've got a button now that will send this to Integromat. Let's test it out. The first thing I want to do is I want to run my webhook. So this is now running in Integromat. It's waiting for a webhook to be posted. Let's go to Stripe this time. Refresh, open my Chrome extension, and I'll now see my send to Integromat button. I'll say sending Stripe web page to Integromat in the notes. Hit send, it says sending, and now it says sent. Let's check Integromat. Sure enough, we've got a success message here. And if we open this up, we can see our message. This is what was sent. We've got our title from Stripe, our URL, this longer description from Stripe, and the image URL with my notes. Again, similar to Zapier, this is a really great way to trigger Integromat scenarios from your Chrome extension. We're doing it, straight from a simple button. When the user clicks it, we send all the information we've gathered from the browser directly to this Integromat scenario, and now I could use all these values in all my following steps in this scenario. So really powerful. I love this kind of stuff. I love automation, and that's how I trigger a lot of my workflows is through Zapier or Integromat. So this is a great function for me. Hopefully it works well for you as well. That is it for sending to Zapier and Integromat. As I said, very simple. And next, I want to move on to doing something a little bit different. I want to take the information that we've gathered from this web page, and I want to generate an image using Banner Bear. So we'll do that next.